Hi, my name is Dr. Allan Stewart, and the title of this podcast is Ask Dr. Allan, Life by Design. And Life by Design to me is to encourage people to live their best life through a variety of interventions or changes. And it was born out of watching or scrolling like everyone else on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, and listening to purported experts talk very passionately about interventions that will make you live 100 years or turn back the clock or prevent aging. And when you look deep down into some of these folks, they really have no experience or education in talking about a variety of these issues. And I thought, well, geez, I've been a heart surgeon now for 19 years and trained at some of the best institutions. So I thought I had a voice that can be backed up by a large breadth of experience to help people in their desire to live better and live longer. So it started when I was 11 years old. This was back before iPhones and social media and even cable TV, to date myself. And there were only 5 channels on television. At the time, I watched a Nova episode just randomly, and it was the first heart transplant done in the United States. And I looked at my parents and said, that's what I want to be when I grow up. And it's, well, if you want to be a doctor, that would be great. And I knew nothing about what it took to be a doctor, much less a preeminent heart surgeon. But what I did know is I loved working with my hands. I had a grandfather who was a diesel mechanic, and he would give me tools every Christmas to fix things. And we worked on carburetors together and changed tires and changed oils and fixed engines. And so I loved the concept of using my hands and my mind to fix things. And so I stayed with that desire to be a doctor, more specifically a surgeon. And that led me over the course of education to the University of Pennsylvania, where I did my surgical residency. Now, when I was all excited, opening up my envelope and realizing that I was matched to go to the University of Pennsylvania, it became very quickly apparent that I knew nothing about what residency was like. And this was before work hour restrictions. So in my first year of training, I know there's 160 hours in a week because for many weeks I worked all of them. So that concept of fatigue and lack of self-care and exercise started to lead to a little extra weight and a feeling of unhealth. But in addition, as I started to do actual surgery, I recognized by the criticism of my teachers that I was left-handed. And my thought was, well, so what, I'm left-handed. But all of the instruments for surgeons are made for right-handed people. And so in the beginning, I was excluded from some operations because I was left-handed. And so undaunted, I decided, well, I'm going to become right-handed, having no idea that that would become a huge asset later in life. But I took this liability and said, well, every night before I go to bed, I'm going to cut my bed sheet from bottom to top and sew it up right-handed. And that became a thing. And over the course of time, all of those little muscles in my right hand became developed. And I was able to become what I call ambidextrous instead of ambidextrous because I'm naturally left-handed, but I became pretty good with my right hand. Now that really helped me later in life to teach because I'm able to operate on either side of the table and teach residents how to operate. But not to get off topic, I still stayed to the idea of wanting to be a heart surgeon and found what I believe to be the best training program in the country at the time, which was Columbia Presbyterian Medical Center. So after moving to New York and starting at Columbia, I met a variety of amazing people along the way that served as my mentors, one of which was Dr. Mehmet Oz of the Dr. Oz Show. And Dr. Oz, as many of you know, had a very different outlook on patient care, both before, during, and after surgery. For instance, he would put headphones on people going into the operating room and have meditation music playing to calm folks before they were going in, thinking that the anxiety was going to increase a variety of stress hormones and make recovery more difficult. One day I asked myself, well, why do you do this? It's not contributing to your future because people are widely disparaging you for it. And he said, well, if you do 400 surgeries a year, like I was doing, and you spend 25 years doing it, you'll impact 10,000 people. But with my show, Dr. Oz, I can impact millions of people every single day. And I thought, well, that's fairly interesting, but I'm going to stay on my path of being a cardiac surgeon. And then COVID hit. COVID really changed everything across the board in the entire world. Not only because we started to adopt principles and practices with absolutely no data just because we were told, but the concept of censorship came really front and center in my life because I became the face of our hospital and talking to the news about, well, how do we live our best life during COVID? And that sort of started this lifestyle journey for me because in addition to talking about structure and habits, I recognized that whenever I mentioned obesity, it was cut out of the interview. And I said, well, geez, there's only two ways people die in COVID. It was you're over 65 or you're overweight. But I said, well, we really don't want to get into body shaming or want to maintain body positivity. So mentioning obesity was not really favorable to the local news media. And that changed obviously abruptly after the drugs like Ozempic and Mounjaro and the like came out, and then all of a sudden obesity was a disease and everybody is now talking about it. Their lungs were shot because they were smoking much more, because if you're at work, you can take a few cigarette breaks a day, but if you're home, you can start smoking in the morning and smoke all day through. So people who would smoke 5 to 10 cigarettes a day are now smoking 2 packs. They were generally 20 to 30 pounds heavier than they were pre-COVID. Their lungs were worse because of the smoking. Their livers were worse off because of all the drinking, and they had this inflammatory state with bad food. And I started saying, well, geez, how can I impact these people? Because not only does it make my operation more difficult, but it essentially makes the operation less effective. I can't do it as a heart surgeon, one patient at a time, so I started to talk more in social media. And when I started considering talking online, I looked at who else is talking about these things. And by and large, I would see people with millions of followers that would talk about exercise or fitness or supplements or how to live. But then looking at who they were, they really had no credentials to talk about it. But they talked in a very believable manner, and people were so interested in following it because people want to live healthier. People want to live longer, and they don't know how. So in the absence of credible people, they'll seek out just anyone who talks with a great voice and looks like they're in shape themselves, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's true. And so I thought, well, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm an Ironman triathlete and a black belt in Okinawan karate and live a healthy life myself. So perhaps from the way I live my life and what I see in the operating room, I might be able to have an impact. And I first started looking at it, so, well, what is the typical life of a person? Well, you're born, and absent any sort of tragedy or bad birth defect, you would generally reach a good level of health in your teens. Now, that's not the same as it was years ago, because the number of unhealthy food offerings has gone up dramatically, so the rate of childhood obesity has gone up really logarithmically in the last 15, 20 years. And so we're not getting to that 100% quality of life in the teens that we're used to for many decades. So, but you hit this level, and then gradually as time goes on, you get a little older, you get a job, you're working many hours, maybe you're working 2 jobs, maybe you married, had a kid, a couple of children, and then exercise becomes something you used to do. eating healthy became something that was a thing of the past. And that really begins this gradual walk down the hill that starts somewhere in your mid-30s, early 40s, and progresses really to a level where you're not independent, and then spend that last decade of your life being really under someone else's care and waiting to die. And as I've read more and more about this, I've come up with sort of a plan that reaches people at various stages in life. Now, this lifespan, which will be depicted in a graph, shows a predictable pattern if you live a sedentary life and then just depend upon your doctors to add medicine after medicine to treat your symptoms. But instead to say, well, at any point in that, what I call slow walk down the hill, you can push that curve into something called lifespan. And so my job and my passion now is to show you how to make changes in your life, which some are intuitive, some involve some marginal expenses of perhaps recovery methods and stretching methods and supplements, but we'll get to that as time goes on. But I think that the goal that all of us want is to be healthy, and rather than just adopting what some influencer tells you will make you live forever. I've got a friend of mine who talks to me every time I see him about infrared sauna and cold plunge. And while that's great, he's 40 pounds overweight. So all the cold plunges and saunas are not going to help him unless he gets rid of that body fat. So this is more of a cookbook, if you will, or a lifestyle change method in order to encourage you all how to live your best life, starting as you reach adulthood and then well into being into your 80s. And then look back and say, geez, I really did take this amazing body that I was gifted and use it to its fullest potential to live my best life. So I invite you to subscribe to this channel, to ask any questions that come up along the way, and take this journey with me.